Welcome back, biology students, to today's Explainer. I'm your host, and today we're cracking open the field researcher's logbook. We're heading deep into the wild to document the dramatic, sometimes terrifying, but honestly absolutely fascinating survival tactics of nature's strangest creatures. We're talking about organisms that don't just live alongside other animals, but literally hijack them entirely.
Now, before we dive in, I've got to give you a quick word of warning. As BBC Wildlife magazine puts it perfectly, you might well not want to think too much about some of these. So consider this your official field briefing. This biology lesson, it's going to require a strong stomach. We're looking at some of the weirdest, creepiest, and most devious evolutionary marvels on the planet today. But hey, as scientists, we aren't here just to be grossed out, right? We're here to understand the brilliant logic of survival.
Let's kick things off with Category 1, the body snatchers. This is all about localized hijacking.
Meet Cymothoa exigua. This is a parasitic isopod that targets a specific host, like the Clark's anemone fish. And get this, it literally severs the host's tongue and acts as a functional replacement. No joke. It grows to be about the size of a cockroach, and it just sets up camp inside the fish's mouth, operating as its brand new tongue.
So, how does this whole visceral attack sequence actually go down? Well, it begins as this tiny, swimming form called a mansa. It sneaks into the unsuspecting fish right through its gills, finds the tongue, and just latches on. Then, showcasing the ruthless efficiency of evolution, it sinks these custom-built syringe-like mouthparts directly into the flesh. It drains the blood so thoroughly that the original tongue just withers away and drops right off, leaving our little isopod to take its place. Dinner is served permanently.
You know, while we're on the subject of devious mouthparts, let's compare our tongue-eating isopod with another aquatic nightmare, the sea lamprey. Unlike the isopod's surgical strike on one single organ, the sea lamprey is kind of more of a brute force vampire. It rocks this perfectly round, sucker-like disc lined with concentric rings of pointy teeth that are actually wider than its own body. It latches on to marine mammals or fish, piercing their flesh with a file-like tongue to drain their fluids. That is exactly why it's earned nicknames like the vampire eel.
Okay, moving on to navigating danger zones, the field hazard map.
We've seen what's lurking in the ocean, but what about the rest of the world? If you're out there studying in the Amazon River, you've got to watch out for the kangaroo, a small parasitic fish notorious in local legends for entering the human body. Heading to the West and Central African rainforests, you'll absolutely need heavy-duty insect repellent, because deer flies out there transmit the African eyeworm. And basically anywhere with contaminated drinking water, especially in rural areas, you risk ingesting microscopic cyclops crustaceans carrying Guinea worm larvae. So strict hygiene, like filtering all your drinking water and covering exposed skin, is really your only true defense to ensure you don't become a host yourself.
Let's zoom in on one of those specific hazards for a second. Loa loa, the African eyeworm. Usually about 1 to 3 inches long, this parasite gets its name because it can actually migrate right across the surface of the human eyeball. I mean, just imagine the sheer disturbing horror of literally feeling and seeing a worm moving right across your line of sight.
But hey, as field biologists, we have to look past the visceral horror here and look at the host's survival strategy. So, here's the crucial point. While it is intensely disturbing, the Mayo Clinic notes that the African eyeworm usually doesn't cause blindness or permanently damage your eyes. Why? Well, because killing or disabling the host is just bad for business. By minimizing fatal damage, Loa loa can live inside a human host for up to 17 years. It is an incredibly effective long-term survival strategy.
Now let's look at another hazard that plays a terrifying long game, the Guinea worm. On day 0, the host drinks contaminated water containing that microscopic cyclops crustacean we mentioned earlier. Hours later, your stomach acid dissolves the crustacean, setting the hidden worm larvae free. Days later, they quietly migrate right through your intestinal wall into your body. And then, a full year goes by. You might completely forget you ever even drank that water. Until, 1 year later, a fully grown female worm travels down your muscles and erupts from your skin, usually on the foot, in an intensely painful blister, just so she can lay her eggs back into a water source. It's a horrific exit strategy, but it's perfectly timed by evolution.
Which brings us to the final and, frankly, most devious category in our logbook, the mind controllers.
These are organisms that literally hijack their host's nervous system. Meet Leucochloridium paradoxum, otherwise known as the green-banded broodsack flatworm. This is a parasite that requires 2 vastly different hosts to complete its bizarre life cycle, a snail and a bird. But think about it, how does a tiny flatworm get a bird to eat a snail? Simple. It turns the snail into irresistible zombie-like bait. The parasite spreads through the snail and literally pushes these thick, wriggly brood sacs up into the snail's eye stalks. These brood sacs are incredibly colorful, and they physically pulsate like little glow sticks. To a passing bird, it looks exactly like a juicy, wriggling caterpillar. It's an eye-catching, deadly beacon that guarantees the snail is going to be spotted and eaten, allowing the parasite to enter the bird and finish its whole life cycle.
And finally, we have the undisputed king of mind control, cordyceps, or Ophiocordyceps. This is the famous zombie ant fungus. I know, it sounds like pure science fiction. In fact, it's exactly what inspired the hit show The Last of Us, but it is an absolute verifiable evolutionary marvel happening right now on the forest floor.
Let's step through this chilling execution protocol. Step 1. The fungus infects a foraging ant and completely hijacks its nervous system. Step 2. It forces the ant to abandon its natural instincts and leave its nest. Step 3, and honestly, this is the most incredible part, it forces the ant to climb up a plant stem to a highly specific height, usually right around 25 centimeters above the forest floor. Step 4, it commands the ant's jaws to lock onto a leaf vein in a permanent death grip. The ant dies right there. And Step 5, fruiting bodies erupt from the dead ant's head. So why 25 centimeters? Because it is the absolute perfect height to maximize the spread of the spore shower down onto the uninfected ants walking on the ground below. Just brilliant.
All right, students, time to close those field logbooks. Let's do a quick lab review on parasite matching.
The best field researchers need to be able to identify these evolutionary pairings instantly in the wild. So let's quickly test your retention. Cymothoa exigua? That's right, it's hunting the Clark's anemone fish to replace its tongue. Leucochloridium paradoxum? Yep, that's our pulsating glow stick flatworm, targeting snails first and birds second. Cordyceps, the fungus that targets forest ants. I mean, imagine you're out in the field doing a soil sample, and you see an ant locked in a death grip exactly 25 centimeters off the ground. You now know exactly what you're looking at. And finally, Loa Loa, utilizing deer flies to eventually hitch a multi-year ride inside humans. You all did great grasping these complex biological pairings today.
We've seen tongue replacers, year-long travelers, and literal mind-controlling fungi, so I want to leave you with a provocative question to ponder long after this lesson is over. Are our bodies truly our own? Or, in the grand scheme of evolutionary biology, are we all just habitats waiting to be claimed by the next devious parasite? Think about that next time you're out in the field. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Stay curious, and hey, always double-check your drinking water.